When they started bringing back the death penalty, I embraced it. The death penalty was fine with me as long as it was your brother, your son, or your daughter. It was okay for somebody else's family members. I supported the death penalty. Never gave a thought for the family members left behind of the executed. And then one day it came knocking on my door. And that's where my education began. Okay, I'm ready when you are. They said he was a monster. I don't see that. I see a little brother. I remember being out in the clam flats, digging clams. Matter of fact, while he was in San Quentin prison, we used to talk about clamming. When Manny was 12 years old, Manny had a car accident. He was thrown quite a few feet. From then on, he was late in school. I mean, he just couldn't, he repeated some of his grades over and over, I think about 4 grades. He repeated. He could barely read or write when he got out of school. He got out of school in the 7th grade. I moved out to Sacramento in 1967, and at that time, Manny was 17 years old, and I wrote back to my mother, how's Manny doing? Manny's in Vietnam. Manny's in war. I said, what? It seems that Manny was watching the war unfold on TV, and he had already had 2 brothers who were in the Marines in front of him. So he's seen that, and he says, I'm going in the Marines, I'm going into the military. So he went down to go join the Marines. He was unable to pass the test. He couldn't pass the test, so the Marines gave him the answers. He found himself at war. I called my mother on the telephone and says, Ma, where's Manny? She said, he's in Vietnam. I said, Ma, we're in Vietnam. She said, he's at this place. I'll go get his letter. I'll tell you where he's at. She spells K-H-E. She got that far, I knew it was K-Son, and my heart dropped. K-Son was all over the news. Ma had no idea Manny was in such precarious situation. She'd have been terrified had she known. Manny did his time. He came home after his first tour of duty. After his second tour of duty, he came home. One day, Manny was in his apartment, and something startled him. A backfire of an automobile, something startled him. He got his little 18-month-old baby, little Manny Jr., and he goes, the bombs are coming, we gotta get the baby out. Can't you hear it? The bombs are coming. So he snatches the baby, and he starts running. His wife is screaming that it's pandemonium, you know. Manny came, when Manny came marching home, limping mentally and morally, they was able to discern his physical wounds, his limps, and they was able to patch those up. But they never got around to patching up that wound in his head. So when he left those 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, he came to America for yet another tour of duty on the battlefield, chasing shadows, imaginary soldiers. And that's what it's all about, see? He was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. After the first wife, he goes to the mental hospital. After the second wife, he goes into the mental hospital. He loses his family. So Manny traded his hooch in Vietnam for a cardboard box on the street of Providence, Rhode Island. In 1980, I was working at the railroad in Sacramento, and I heard Manny was coming, and I was so glad my brother Manny's coming. We could watch boxing together, you know. We could cook. We could see who makes the best linguiça and rice if you want to have a contest. Maybe we would have went down here to Bodego Bay and got some of these giant clams. A poor substitute for the clams on Cape Cod, but they would have to do. My wife, Linda, welcomed him in our home. We had 3 children. We resigned ourselves. We're gonna have to take care of Manny. No pressure on him to go out and work. I was so proud to have my young brother, but I noticed when Manny came home, he seemed to be so obsessed with the war. He talked about it constantly, you know. I realized that he would have these mood swings, like, you know, and he had trouble sleeping. We never knew. We never knew what was wrong. I'd take him to pool halls, shoot out pool together. Like I said, I was glad we were going to shoot some pool together. But when we'd get around pool tables, he'd hang around the pool table. He wasn't courteous. He was like itching for another battle, it seemed like, you know, and I'm, you know, combative, like, and I'm saying, Manny, you gotta cool it. You don't sit up on the table and cross your legs like that in a lotus position, Manny. You can't do that, Manny, you know. You can't catch flies with the glass. You know, you can't, when people are shooting pool, you can't bang the stick. You can't, he's doing all these crazy things. He's, Manny, you can't do that. I knew there was something wrong, but I couldn't put my hand on it. And nobody told me to look out for these symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Your brother might have these symptoms, look out. I let Manny get away from me. He started going on his own. He started bathing less. He started dressing bizarre. Hairstyle. And my little brother was out there in limbo land, fighting these battles. One day I got a call from my wife, Linda. She says, did you give Manny any money? I said, no, I didn't give him any money. She says, well, he's got some money. He's been buying the kids ice cream. The ice cream truck comes around. Bunch of nickels. When I came home that night looking for Manny, I was working the night shift. Manny was nowhere around. I started thinking, where's Manny getting money from? I said, well, let me go in the closet where Manny keeps his stuff. See if I see any, maybe I can get answers. And I just happened to move aside an old coat. And in that old coat, that coat had a hole in the pocket. And that cigarette lighter came tumbling out of that coat pocket and hit the floor with a thump. I picked up the cigarette lighter, one of those old flip-tops, old-fashioned flip-tops, one you put the fluid in. I flipped it open, man, and there it is. It didn't even work. And I looked at the cigarette lighter, and the cigarette lighter had LS. LS. I couldn't sleep. I got up back out of bed. I said, let me start shaving. So I started shaving, thinking about Manny. Where's Manny? About 4 or 5 o'clock now. Manny never showed up, and then it hit me. Leah Shundell had been to Reno, pulling the one-armed bandits, LS. It hit me right then. I went over to where my wife was asleep. I got down at the foot of the bed beside her, and I was praying. I was trying to pray myself out of this nightmare that before I woke my wife, and it wasn't to be. And I woke her. I says, "We got to pray about this." And then I says, "Manny's done something." "Where's Manny?" "Manny's done something terrible." So we talked about it. We agonized over what we're going to do about it. I was so scared. Now, at this point, I'm scared. What's Manny going to do? Come home and hurt me now and hurt my wife and the kids? And that's when we decided, well, we got to do the right thing. We got to call the police. I went down to the police station, and they treated me like I was the cock of the walk, the man of the hour, to be celebrated. They patted me on my back. I got a sandwich and a cup of coffee, and I cried. I was so grateful for these cops, you know. They're gonna make it right. Somehow. Finally, after about 2-3 hours of interviews, tape recorders and this and that, I heard this click, click. I looked and I seen a cop pull out his automatic rifle, check it for bullets, slam it back in. The detective that was interviewing me pushed back from his desk. He pulled out some keys, unlocked the door. He pulled out his big revolver, opened it up, checked for bullets, put it in. I seen about 4 or 5 cops loading up their guns. Then I go, "Please don't kill my brother." I says, "I come here this morning because somebody died. I want that to be the end of death, dying. I don't want my brother to die. Don't shoot my brother." And they said, "We're not going to shoot nobody, Bill. You know, we're not going to shoot your brother, you know." I said, I got an idea where he's at. I think he's at my sister Donna's house, and if you let me go over there, I said, I'll get him out of the house. I'll tell him that we're going to go play some pool, and then you guys can get him when he comes out of there. We drove down. It was raining cats and dogs that day, man. It was just pouring rain. We go up there. Manny's up with the kids, and it's raining, and he had the sheets on the... He was playing with Pom Pom and Chucky, and he was making these little dudes tents and stuff, and they was having a good old time. I could hear him yelling, and I knocked on the door, and there's my brother in the sheets with these kids. I says, "Brother, I'm gonna teach you how to play pool this morning." I lied to my brother. On his last day of freedom. Oh, God. What will my neighbors think? Will they think that I'm a bad person, that we're bad people? What will my mother think? Would she understand that I had to do what I did? What would Manny think? They didn't even see the cops. They were behind these hedges. We walked towards them. We got it right up here next to him, and they just sprung out. One cop grabbed his arm and says, "Are you Bill Babbitt?" "Yes." And I says, "Brother, these are good cops. They know about your battle in Vietnam, and they know about that one in your head. They're going to give you some help, brother." I looked down and said, "Brother, please forgive me." He looks up at me and he says, "You're already forgiven, brother. I forgive you." If I had given Manny a bus ticket and get him out of Dodge, I would have Leah Shandel's blood on my hands, or maybe some other innocent person might die because I took the low road. I didn't tell the police what I knew. I had to be responsible. And then they took us down to the station. They interviewed him for a long time. I went in there and they asked me if I could get him to confess. And I went in there and I noticed they had taken his socks off and he was free, he was shivering. So I went over to the window and I knocked on the window. And they came open the door and I says, "Can you please give my brother his socks back?" You know what, he gave him his stockings back. He gave him his stockings back on his bare feet. He put his stockings on. I knew everything was going to be all right. I knew it was going to be all right. I told my family it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. The cops told me, "Oh, he's not going to get the death penalty. This is not a death penalty case." They really believed that Manny would not go to death row. We had to go down to talk to a lawyer. I trusted this lawyer because he looked like one of those lawyers you see on TV. I mean, he was tall, he was blonde, fancy suit on. I'm thinking he's about something. He had an office right on across the street from the county courthouse. I'm thinking, this is cool, you know, he's a good lawyer. He told us what the case was. He says, "They got special circumstances on your brother. They're going for the death penalty." I go, "What?" But the cops, this is the cop. He knew this won't be no death penalty case. He'll go to hospital. Well, the cops did not deliberately lie to me. But when the district attorney got a hold of it, she thought otherwise. Political season. When it's time to pick the cherries, time to pick the oranges, you head for the fields. And you start picking. And you enrich yourself. And that's what they did with the death penalty. When I asked the lawyer during the courts, I says, "I don't see any blacks being seated on the jury." He told me that he did not trust. He used the N-word. I guess he must have figured he could use the nigger word and feel comfortable. When they got time to try Manny, the defense treated me as a defense witness. The prosecution treated me as a prosecution witness. So I'm witness for the prosecutor to put the rope around Manny's neck, and I'm a witness for the defense to take that rope off of Manny's neck. Now I'm on the other side now. I couldn't deal with the prosecutor because he kept trying to make me look like a bad guy, making my mouth feel dry, scaring my heart. He was trying to take away my heart, my sincerity. Well, the judge had to admonish the prosecutor, give Mr. Babbitt a chance to answer. After 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, 5 major battles, all that he went through was wounds, shrapnel in the skull. And they're saying that post-traumatic stress disorder is a bunch of crap. He's masquerading, and he's a monster. He needs to die for what he did. I felt that justice would prevail. And it did not. one of the regrets that I have. I didn't spend more time with Manny because I took it for granted that he wasn't going nowhere. And I took it for granted that sooner or later he'll be down in a place where we could take him lunch. He won't be in a prison, he'll be in a hospital. I had hopes, you know. We heard about they were going to get Manny was going to get his Purple Heart. I said, sure enough, that's going to stop Manny's execution. Manny comes in shackled. The Marines salute my brother Manny, the condemned. And Manny tries to salute because his hands are tethered to his belly chain. He tries to salute. And my mother goes, that's my son. I'm proud of my boy. Then they took the medal off of Manny. When it was done, the ceremony, they gave it to my mother. They brought Manny off to his cell. He put 20 years in jail from 1980 to May 1999 when he was executed. I told Manny, I'm gonna be there, Manny. You look at me, and we'll talk. And he told me, no, I'm not gonna look at anybody. He said, my eyes are gonna be closed. He didn't want Donna to see him dying, my sister. I didn't want Donna to see what I saw. Her last image of Manny, when Manny was making her kids squeal with delight that he made those little tent sheets out of sheets the day he was arrested, that's the memory she has of Manny, his last day of freedom. You know, that's the memory she has of Manny. Okay. Now it's time to die. I'm going to bring you around the time to die, okay? We make our way to San Quentin prison. We go up, and they take my wedding ring and my watch. They patted us down. They told us what to expect when we go there and how we're going to behave ourselves and don't be disruptive, or we will be moved from the viewing area. So when I get up there, I'm in a big white van, but in front of us there was another van, and that had the Chandel family. They get out the van first. We walk through this gauntlet of correctional officers. And you know something? I'm looking at those correctional officers, and they're looking at me. We're making eye contact. I've seen sympathetic eyes. We sat down the Chandel family here. The press was at Manny's head. I was standing at his feet. I had to stand because they didn't give me no chair. The only noises you could hear then is the pipes, water, air going through the pipes and steam. You could hear pipes clanging, like, you know, things unsettling. And I'm watching my brother. He's just lying there with his eyes closed. And I'm looking at the Chandel family and they're staring at my brother, you know, and I'm thinking, I know they resent the fact that my brother's dying with white socks on. He doesn't have no hand around his neck. Nobody's punching him in his face. And I know they must really be upset about that, you know. Yes, they were victims. They had a terrible loss. But we're all partners in this experiment. We all got blood on our hands now. And then when it was all over, I seen my brother lying there in his white socks. And I knew my family was out there by the gate. And what they did is they took my wife and I in a car. And I didn't go looking for my family. My wife and I went down to Half Moon Bay. They drove us down there at this place on the beach. And we spent a day down there in Half Moon Bay, throwing rocks in the water, skipping stones across the surf. I knew that my family back home was in agony. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. So guess what? Here I am. Here I am, implacable. I'm gonna tell it. Thank you for putting that box out there in front of me. So you stand on this box and tell that story. Thank you for that rooftop. I could still see Manny lying on the gurney on his birthday. And then I see Manny lying in the casket on Mother's Day in Wareham, Massachusetts, because he died May 5th, 1999. So by the time Mother's Day rolled around, there's my brother lying in a coffin. You know, Manny's name don't come up no more, you know? My own family members, some of them, they don't want to talk about it no more. It's like Manny never even existed. And what do I tell these people? I'm sorry?
this, which makes no sense.
And he asked me if I could get him to confess.
When we met Bill and we heard his intense story, we began to think about how could we depict this traumatic experience, and we turned to what we know best, which is drawing.
I knew there was something wrong, but I couldn't put my hand on it. And nobody told me to look out for these symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Your brother might have these symptoms, look out. I let Manny get away from me. He started going on to the Zoom. He started bathing less. He started dressing bizarre. Hairstyle. And my little brother was out there in limbo land, fighting these battles.
The other thing with animation is you start from a blank page. So you can draw as much or as little as you want, and you can just make it from nothing. There's no standard that you start from. You just start from, a clean slate, and you create whatever you want on it.
We knew we didn't want to use reenactment, and we wanted to try to describe class and race in ways that didn't automatically allow that to be the first thing you thought about. We chose animation because it describes psychological states and emotional states. And so you really have this possibility of going beyond literally what's the story in front of you and having these other metaphors and describe these qualities so that the whole screen can be completely blank. And you can see one thin line when Bill feels isolated and lonely, or it can feel completely chaotic and hectic when you're describing Manny's state as he comes back from the war and is facing incredible trauma and loss and chaos in his life.
And once we had the radio cut, I think we worked for 2 years every day drawing.
I spent an entire summer drawing the end where Bill's crying. And it took me 3 months to draw that piece.
And it's about 50 seconds.
We decided we wanted to look at the impact of the death penalty on whole communities, on families. And we interviewed a number of families, and then we came to Bill's story. And we felt that Bill told his story so eloquently, and that it raised so many points about failures in our infrastructure, from veterans coming home from war, to mental health issues, medical issues, racism. And we felt that it encapsulated so much that we decided to focus on Bill's story. And then the way that Bill tells his story is so incredibly moving. And so that for us felt like we could spend the time to really want to tell this story.
Oh, God. What will my neighbors think? Will they think that I'm a bad person, that we're bad people? What will my mother think? Would she understand that I had to do what I did? What would Manny think?